Today's bell work is a review for the SAT. Sometimes our bell work will go along with the topic that I'm teaching, but sometimes it'll be just a review of something that you've learned in the past, okay? So what this says is the graph of the linear function f is shown where y is the same as f of x. What is the y-intercept? So go ahead and underline. That's what we're looking for. You always want to identify the question, and you can't see that, can you? Let me pull it up. You always want to identify the question. And the question that we're answering is, what is the y-intercept? So I'm going to put two dots. I'm going to put one here, and I'm going to put one here. Which one is the y-intercept? The green dot or the blue dot? The green dot, right. So that is at 8. So which would you select on the SAT? A, B, C, or D? D. And that would be your correct answer. All right, so now let's move on to our notes. So this unit is all about radical functions. Radical functions. So we're going to graph square roots and cube roots. But today, we're going to start with graphing a square root. So know that a square root, y equals x squared, and y equals the square root of x are inverses, which means that they're opposites. Remember from first semester when we had to find the inverse, we flipped x and y. So let's go ahead. I want you to graph these points, y equals x squared. I'm going to use two different colors. So let's go ahead and graph y equals x squared. This one is a quadratic. It should look like a smile. So let's go ahead and graph that. So -2 up 4, -1 up 1, 0, 0, 1, 1, and 2, 4. And when you connect that, it should look like this. This is the graph of y equals x squared. So that is one of the functions that we covered first semester. And when we look at that function, let's go ahead and fill this in. The domain, notice how in this column, I have positive and negative numbers. Does everyone see that? That column is positive and negative, which means my domain would be all real numbers, which is negative infinity to positive infinity. But when you look at these numbers that you see highlighted in blue, are any of those numbers negative? No, they're only positive. So my domain isn't everything, because negative infinity to positive infinity means it's everything, but it's not everything. It's only positive numbers. So we would write that as bracket 0, comma, to infinity. That's our range. All right, so now let's go ahead and flip this table, because remember, that's how we find our inverse. So what I want you to do, I want you to take the values that we have listed in X, I want you to put that here. So let's go ahead and take these 5 numbers and write them in the Y column. So that would be a -2, a -1, a 0, a 1, and a 2. And now do the same thing. Take your Y column and put them where your X is, which would be a 4, a 1, a 0, a 1, and a 4. Okay, now we have a problem now. So if you have a calculator on your desk, I want you to type in your calculator, y equals the square root of 4. And to get the square root, you have to hit the green key and you have to hit x squared. Did you get a positive 2 or a negative 2? Positive 2. So what that tells me is that this one here, this is not true. So we have to get rid of that. And we also have to get rid of this. Okay? Because when you take a square root, the square root of a number is always positive. So I'm going to write that here. The square root of any number is positive. Okay? So because of that, when I graph my inverse, I have to cross out the first 2. I can only put those 3 points at the bottom. So for my inverse, you're only going to graph 0, 0, 1, 1, and 4, 2. Those are the only 3 points that are valid for the inverse. So let's graph the inverse. I'm going to graph that in, let me use some different colors. Let's go to purple. Purple's my favorite color. All right, so I'm going to put a point at 0, 0, 1, 1, and 4, 2. This graph only goes in one direction. And I want you to notice that at the base, I did not put an arrow. Okay, that's what your graph looks like. To me, it looks like an eyebrow. That's the only way I could think to describe it. It should look like your eyebrow. It should be kind of like going up, like most people's eyebrows. Unless you draw them in weird. It should be like, that's an eyebrow. That's what a square root looks like. All right, so when we look at our domain and range, now notice that we don't have any negatives, right? So I don't have an all real numbers for anything for a square root. My domain and my range will be 0 to infinity. Because, again, this is only positive. All right, so today's class is focusing on transformations, identifying AH and K, and then writing the transformations. So let's go ahead and fill in what does AH and K do and where can you find it. All right, so let's talk about A. This is A. A is always going to be in front. All right, whenever A is negative, it will flip. Or you could say reflect. Flip or reflect, either one would be fine. If A is greater than 1, the absolute value of A is bigger than 1, we're going to say that it stretches. But if A is between 0 and 1, we say it compresses. So remember, your A is going to be in front. That's where we're going to find A. Telling you, talking all day is rough. So thirsty. Okay, so now let's talk about H. H is under. That's where you're going to find H. H is under the square root. Under. Now, the thing about H is that H is always the opposite. So, if H is positive, it's going to move your square root graph or your eyebrow to the right. But if H is negative, it's going to move it to the left. And then lastly, we have K. K is in the back. We don't flip the sign. It's not the opposite. If it's positive, it's moving your eyebrow up. If it's negative, it's going to move it down. So first, we're going to look at some examples that were already done, and then we're going to do a few, and then we're done for today. We're actually going to start our homework together. So I'm going to go ahead at the top of page 3. Let's go ahead and look at it. We already have our answers. Remember, the A value is in front. That's why A is 3. Now, it kind of did the most. It said vertical stretch of 3. You don't need to say that. All I'm looking for is the word stretch. Notice that now H is the tricky one. Underneath there's a +1, which means that H is the opposite. Notice that we said H is a -1. That's why we said it moved left, not right. K, that's in the back, -4. -4 means it's going to go down 4. All right, let's look at number 2. In front, we have a -2. That made it do 2 things. It made it reflect, and because it was a 2, and 2 is bigger than 1, it also made it stretch. So that transformation made 2 changes. That's what a transformation is a change. Underneath the square root, do you see how it says -5? Well, that means that H is the opposite. It's not going to be -5. It's going to be +5, which is why we said it moved to the right. K is +1, which is why it moved up 1. All right, last one, and then we'll do some together. A is 1/3, which is why we need to say it compressed. Again, you don't have to say vertical, and you don't need to say of 1/3. The only word I'm looking for on the quiz, on the test, on the skills check, on whatever, is compressed. That's all you gotta say. Underneath the square root is a +2, which means that H is actually going to be a -2. Which is going to move it left 2. And lastly, in the back, we have a +7, which is going to make it go up 7. So now that we have looked at those together, let's go ahead and fill it in and do them ourselves. So let's go. Let's finish this out. And then we'll be done. We're going to start our homework. All right, so let's look at this one together. What is the number in front of the square root? -1. Good job. A is -1. Whenever A is negative, what do I have to write? Go back here. When it's negative, what do we have to say when A is negative? One of these 2 words. Yep, you can say flip. You could also say reflect. So that's what we're going to write. I'm going to write reflect. Remember, H is under. Under is under and is opposite. So it says +3, which means H is -3. All right, let's go back. When H is negative, what does it make your graph do? Go left. Good job. And it's going to go left 3. And then K is the number in the back. So K would be back here. Do you see a number back here? No, so that means K is 0. So this graph doesn't go up or down. So it only has 2 transformations. Making sense so far? All right, let's look at the next one, B. And then I'm gonna do the first 3, and then I'm gonna let you all do the last 2, and I'm gonna walk around and see how many of you all are really with me. You know, let's just see. All right, so A is in front. So the number, what's the number in front of the square root? 1/2. So do you think, let me go back. A is 1/2. 1/2 is between 0 and 1, which is why we're going to say it compresses. Okay, so we're going to say that this one is going to compress. Under the square root. Well, X is all by itself under the square root. Would you all agree? There isn't anything else under the square root besides x. So that means that h is 0. And if h is 0, it doesn't go left or right. Now let's look at the back. We do have a number in the back. In the back means it's not under the square root. It's just in the back. That's my k value. So k is -2. All right, let's go back. Flip the page. When k is negative, it moves it down. Good. My iPad does not like me flipping pages, I don't think, but it's going to have to deal with it. So we're going to say down 2. All right, last one that we're going to do together. Now, you don't see a number in front. Now, a cannot be 0, okay? If you don't see a number in front of a square root, that means that it's 1. But again, with it being 1, that's the parent. It doesn't make it stretch, compress, or flip. Nothing changes. What do you think this is? Is this H or K? Who says it's H? Raise your hand if you think this is H. I agree. It's underneath. But am I going to say it's +4 or -4? -4. Good job. We always flip it. Negative moves it left 4. All right. What do you think your K value is? What number is at the back? A 0. Good. So it doesn't go up or down. All right. I'm going to give you all 3 minutes to do the next 2 by yourself. And I'm just going to come around and see what we got. All right, that was actually not bad. Not bad at all. All right, so D, in front, we have a 1/3, which is going to make this graph compress. Now, a common mistake that I did see walking around is calling this H. But it's not, well, I'm sorry, it's calling it K. But it's not K, it's H because it's under. And also, a lot of you all put a +1. This is the only one that we have to flip it. It becomes a -1. So H is -1 and K is 0. So you should have written, and this is what you're going to write when you have your first exit ticket, which I think is later this week. You would just tell me it compresses and that it moves left 1. For the last one, A is 2, which is going to make it what? Stretch, compress, or reflect? Stretch. Good job. Under the square root is a +2, but that means that it's really a -2. And what does that make it do? Left 2, right 2, up 2, or down 2? Left 2. Good job. And then lastly, the +6 is in the back, which is going to move it up 6. All right, we actually already did a question like example 2, so we're going to skip that one. We're not doing that one because we already did that. So now let's move to our homework and let's get that started together. All right, can you write on your homework that it is due on Friday? So to get full credit, you have to turn it into this tray right here before Friday. Now, if by chance you don't get it turned in by Friday, still turn it in because you can still get something. Zeros hurts your grade. We don't want zeros in Skyward. All right, so the only thing I want to look at on our homework are just the 3 graphs that you see I have highlighted in different colors, because that's all we talked about today. Okay, this here, let's talk about this blue graph right here. This is a square root function. This is just the regular square root function. So I'm going to put the letter F next to the square root function, because that graph, this graph, is what a regular square root looks like. What's the difference between the blue box and the pink box? What happened to the function? It reflected, it flipped, right? So whenever it flips, that means I have to put a negative in front. So that means that the one after this is going to be, that's graph A. Because of that negative, that's what happens when it reflects. And lastly, this green graph, that's just a regular quadratic. So where would that go? Where am I going to put the letter D? The first one. All right, we'll talk about the next 3 later. So the only thing I want you to do today is questions 2 and 3. Finish questions 2 and 3, and then you are done. And put it away, and every single day we work on homework together. So theoretically, you should all have it done by Thursday. And you could all get it turned in Thursday, because we do it a little bit every single day.